A very good friend of mine retired. She's just going to be living on whatever it is she squirreled away and not really any work-related income. I mean, there'll be income, but it'll be like government income. How does that work? What happens to people when they stop working? When that weekly paycheck is replaced by a monthly government check? But I'm picturing my life on unemployment for 2 years, thank you, Mr. President. When I was washing floors to make ends meet, and this doesn't sound pretty if I'm thinking my 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, because I'd like to live to be that long. I'd like to live to be that long. I'd like to live long enough to be that. My original plan when I was a little kid, I was gonna marry some guy and then we'd get divorced and I would get alimony, and for that alimony I would write very nice thank you notes every single month. Or maybe I'd marry some rich old guy, and if he didn't have a heart attack on the honeymoon, I could push him down the stairs and then I would inherit everything. This was my 8-year-old thinking like Anna Nicole Smith, plan for life. And even when I think about it today, it's my parents' staircase that I see in my head. I never even had enough imagination to come up with the mansion that me and my soon-to-be 6-foot-under old rich husband, soon-to-be late husband, the one we'd be living in. Like I had us in my head living in my parents' house, and then I would kill him. Because in my head, I'm still 8 years old, married to this old guy. That's a whole nother daddy issue episode that we're not gonna cover now. That marrying an old rich guy didn't work out for me, and it didn't work out all that well for Anna Nicole Smith either, I might add. But at the end of my work rainbow, what is in my golden bucket? This is what I was raised to believe. You work, you work, you work, you work, and at the end of it is retirement, and you can just relax. My golden bucket. What's in my golden bucket? I don't think I have a golden bucket. These 20-somethings come up to me and say, well, what do you care? You're gonna retire in a few years. Excuse me? A, I can't afford to retire in a few years. B, there is no golden bucket at the end of the work rainbow, okay? I'll get Social Security, which would be higher if it wasn't for all those years I made $0 and that one year I made $8, the stripper years. And I have a tiny little pension. So my plan of retiring at 45 and moving out of the city, well, that has already passed me by. That was the original plan after the original plan of marrying the old rich man and pushing him down the stairs. After that one, after I gave that one up, my next original plan was to retire at 45 and move away. I have not actually given up on my dream of moving out of the city. I'm just doing it at a very, very slow rate. There was Manhattan for 20 years, and then I branched out and moved into the wilds of the Brooklyn waterfront, and I stayed there for 10 years, and then I got really brave and I moved to Queens. So, you know, at this rate I'll be 85 by the time I get to Long Island, and that's not where I want to go anyway. So I need to start thinking about surviving when the paychecks stop coming in. It'd be really nice not to have a rent job. A rent job is that job that you do that you don't really want to do, that you do because you need the money or you need the benefits or you need something on paper, but really your heart is someplace else. Your rent job is the thing you do because you have to survive. It is not the thing you do to feed your heart. It's to feed your belly. My 86-year-old mother gets less Social Security than I will, but a bigger pension. Plus she gets my dad's veterans pension and the 100% health care that comes along with that. Then she gets the minimum required distribution from her IRA and the dividends and interest from her stock account. Altogether, she gets more in a year, sitting home on her couch trying to change the TV using the telephone, and then it doesn't work, and she calls me on the telephone, which she was just using as a remote, and tells me that the TV doesn't work. She makes more in a year doing that. Not more. She makes almost as much in a year doing that as I did working 60, 70 hours a week in the magazine industry at my peak. So there's this little voice in my head that sounds just like my mother. Not my 86-year-old mother, but my mother when I was 20-something and busy spending money and not saving any of it. And that mother's voice in my head keeps reminding me that if I had put just 10% away in my stripper years, 10%, I would have been retired and comfortably 13 years ago, right on schedule. If I had put 15% away, I would be retired comfortably and have a house in the country in which to retire to. 10% of my stripper money went to taxi cabs. 15% of my stripper money went to rent. The other 75%, it went in my nose, in my arm, in my mouth, in my belly, every place but in the bank. If I had it to do all over again, if I had it to do all over again, what would I do? Take the job with the circus and travel around riding elephants wearing a sequin costume for at least a year. Take the money that my grandmother left me, and rather than spending it on bail for some errant boyfriend in the early 80s, I would take that money and buy a building in the Lower East Side when you could get them for $10,000 and just sit on it. Invest early in Google, in Microsoft. I'd stand up to my father. I would be a boy and work in heavy construction and have the union behind me. I wouldn't have worried about my weight when I was actually skinny and thought I was fat. Instead of fucking up my NYU film school opportunity, I would stay and I would be the next Martin Scorsese, but you know, taller and girlier. I would have loved my hair when I was 8 and 9 and 10 and 12, instead of ironing it and taping it down. I'd be more protective of my body and not let it get into the situations it got into quite so easily. I'd like to say I'd drink less, but that would not be true. I'm an alcoholic, and if I had it to do all over again, I for sure would be drinking just as much. And if I was drinking just as much, I would probably piss it all away just the way I did. I would not drink beer. If I could go back with the knowledge I had today, I'd have gone to veterinary school. I'd own a bed and breakfast, which meant I would get to stay in bed and somebody would bring me breakfast. Bought an apartment in the East Village or Brooklyn, stripped for more years or put more money away, and photography school, writing school, read more books. I would say yes every time somebody asked me if they could take me away. And I would say no every time somebody asked me if I would marry them. Write more books. I'd search out Bill Gates way before he meets Melinda and make him fall in love with me. Who am I kidding? It would probably turn out exactly the same. I'd be in my 20s again, and I'd be drunk, and I would think I was never gonna die and I was never gonna retire. If I had it to do all over again, it probably wouldn't be that different. Money's never been a real big priority for me. As long as I have enough to take care of myself at the moment, I'm good. I just know that I'm gonna be taken care of. Hindsight's 20/20, but it's not all that helpful. Best I can do, keep moving forward. I would have gotten my motorcycle license years earlier. Then I'm probably dead. This is hard. There just aren't a lot of things I would change.